Yeah?
Yeah.
HDR? David? You've done it? Do you have a cell phone that takes pictures?
Yeah.
You've done HDR, because all cell phones pretty much will do HDR. They're crappy HDR, but they're not as crappy as some of the cheesy crap that we see out there. Crap is an institutional academic word. So HDR essentially means high dynamic range, all right? So what we're going to be doing with high dynamic range is taking pictures, taking the same frame, right? So we're going to frame this up. We're going to focus in the same point. We're going to keep our aperture the same, and the only thing we're changing is your shutter speed. It has to be really contrasty light. So can you flip those light switches for me real quick? Like turn that one off. Yeah, just keep that on there. All right, so this is pretty contrasty, right? This area here, because it goes from light to dark relatively quickly. So what we're going to be doing with this is we're going to try and capture the detail in the shadows and the detail in the highlights. And how we do that is we literally photograph them for each of those purposes. So what you'll see is here, HDR with people can be very difficult. They have to stay still because this isn't a blending of panoramic. We have to use the same frame. So can you stay still or do you need to move?
Just use the chicken.
We could just use the chicken, that's true. But you can just move then. That works fine. So I'll just do this corner. The reason I'm doing this corner is because we got a computer screen, we got the light over here, and we got really dark shadow information everywhere there. What I'm going to do is focus first, all right, because the focus has to stay the same. If you do this process at night and you want to take pictures with like trees and stuff like that, if it's really windy, it's going to definitely ruin your shot. But for the most part, you can do that. There is a way to get rid of like the blurriness of trees and whatnot. So right here, I focus on the computer screen. My light meter that I will be checking here, I want my light meter, I want to take my first shot at normal. So the 0 is right in the middle, all right? That's my normal exposure, that's the average exposure. So I'm going to take a shot here, right? And I'm going to take, rather than move my aperture, because the aperture, if I change my aperture, I'm changing my depth of field, right? We don't want to change anything like that. We want to change the shutter speed. So now I'm going to overexpose it here by 2/3 to a full stop. So I'm going to go over. And now I'm going to keep going over. So this is now at 1.5 stops over. I'm going to go up to 2 stops over. What I'm doing now, because I'm overexposing it, is I'm letting in the light from the shadow because I'm doing a longer exposure. So I'm getting shadow information. But I'm blowing out my screen, I'm blowing out the wall. That's okay, because now what I'm going to do is go back and underexpose it. So I'll underexpose it for about 2/3, every 2/3 of a stop or so. So right now about 1.5 stops. I'm going to keep going until I get a really good version of the wall and the screen that don't look like they are underexposed. There we go. All right, so I just did a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So 9 pictures. You don't need 9 pictures. The very minimum, you need 3 pictures. 3 pictures means it's really low contrast. The more pictures you have typically is indicative of higher contrast. Does that make sense? Because if it's higher contrast, that means your darks are really dark and you need to photograph them, overexpose them a little bit more, have more of a gradation between them. And opposite's also true. If your highlights are really bright, you need to have more images there so you have a smoother gradation. So now I've captured all the images for all 3 techniques. I'll show you how to do them on the screen now, all right, on Lightroom. So you can end that bow.